Hey everyone, welcome to this lesson and welcome to this practice. In this one, we're going to build something pretty cool, and that is basically a food chooser. So let me tell you something. So have you been in this situation where you wanted to eat something, you want to go get something from outside, but you just don't know what food or which food to choose? So in this case, what we're going to do, using what we've learned so far when it comes to importing the random method, using lists and all that stuff to create a program that is going to ask us for a few foods, and it's going to tell us randomly which one we should go with. All right. So with that being said, let's get into it. You can access the file, the practice file, in the resources section. That's going to take you to Replit. You can fork it for yourself, and it's going to give you a code like this. So it's going to already ask for the inputs. It's going to say foods equal, please enter the food list separated by comma. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to ask for the food list. All right. So let me explain how do you actually do this. So obviously first we're going to get the list of the food separated by the comma, and then we're going to choose the winner randomly. The winner is the food you'll get tonight or something like that. And again, keep in mind, think about how you're supposed to do this. So first of all, you got to actually separate it and make these foods, which are all in the same string, into a list, right? That means you use the split function. And then you're supposed to actually get the numbers because you don't know how many people user is going to input. So like that's a pretty complicated thing. And then you're going to choose a random number and choose the winner and all that stuff. So I want to give you a second. I want you to think about this for a second. See how you can actually do this. Based on what you already know so far, you should be able to do this and you should be able to solve this. But if you don't, it's completely fine. But I want you to just think about how you can actually structure it and imagine it in your head, even if you don't want to code it. Just imagine it in your head. How would you actually program something like this? So with that being said, I'm going to give you a second and I'll start working on this. All right. So hopefully you actually try to, pause this video and, code this thing a little bit. If not, that's fine. Again, either way, I want to show it to you, but I just rather if you guys actually do it either before me or after me, so that way you can just get yourself familiar with writing code and get more comfortable with it. All right. So the first thing we're going to do to solve this is we're going to import the random function, right? Because we're actually using random, that random method in this case. So we want to import the random function. So I'm just importing that. And then we got a food name, right? We got a bunch of food names here. We want to turn it to a list. So I'm going to turn this to a food list. I'm just going to say foods list. And that's going to equal foods split, right? Again, we talked about the split function. And we're going to split it by comma. Very simple here, right? And the next step is actually a very interesting thing. So if you remember, again, finding a random number is not that hard, right? We know how to choose a random number. We use random and then rand integer or something like that, right? Rand integer. So and then we just go with, for example, 0 to 25 or something. So that's not that complicated at all. One of the issues with this is that we don't know how many enters the user is going to give us. So think about it for a second. Let me actually print the food list real quick, right? So let me actually run this and let's take a look at it. So if I enter, for example, sushi, I'm going to enter pasta, and then I'm going to enter pizza. And let's say we got 3, right? So we get a list, but how do we know how many items are in this list? Because we don't know. Someone might enter 3, someone might enter 7, someone might enter 10. So how do we actually find the number? If you remember in the previous section, we talked about a function called len, or length. So it was something like this. Let me just enter that. There you go. So it was something like this. The idea was that you could actually find the length of the function or something that is inside it. Very simple, right? So the way we're going to deal with this is that we're going to find the maximum amount of items in that list, and you can use the length function to actually do that. So I'm going to define a new variable, call it max rand number equals len, and we're going to enter the food list. So that way, this is basically what's happening is that this length function is looking at this food list and looking at how many items are in this list. Now here's the problem, another problem that we have. If we remember, when we look at the list here, right, we start with 0, 1, 2. But if you actually just get the length, we're not going to get 2, we're going to get 3, because length is going to count all the items in this list, which is 3. But technically we just have 2 because a list starts as an index, and that is 0, 1, 2, right? So how do we do this? And that's pretty simple. If you think about it, we just gotta have it -1, right? So whatever this number is that we have, like this user enters based on the food list, we're just gonna have a -1 by it, so we just take 1 out immediately. So now the maximum number that we have is 2 in this case, at least. So now we got the right number here. So I hope this was not that confusing, but again, it's really simple, right? We are just getting a list, we're splitting it, turning it into a list, and now we want the maximum number on that list. And the way we do this is that we use the length function to look at the list, the food list, and take 1 out, basically -1. And the reason is that this length function is going to count it literally. That means 1, 2, 3. But the list index system, it starts from 0, so we need to take 1 out, right? So we need to do it -1. So that's how we do it. So now we got to find a random number. So that's pretty simple, right? So we're going to say random number. That's the one we're going to be using for our randomization, right? So I'm just going to say random int. I made a mistake. There you go. Random integer, or rand int. All right. And then we're going to start from 0, right? And the max number is the one we just got here. So we're just going to put that right here. And just like that, we got our random number. So just like that, we're pretty much done. So all we got to do is choose a winner. So I'm just going to say winner equals food list, right? So we got this list of foods that we have, and we're going to essentially choose one of the numbers inside this list that we just created, right, based on the user entry. And the way we do this is we're using the random number that we generated. So this is 0 and between the max amount of user input, right, max number. So just like that, we have a random number. So now we can say print, and we're going to say if, and the computer chose winner for you. Here we go. Oh man, I made a mistake here. For you. Alright, so just like that, we got our final winner. So let's test it out. Let's see how it works. So if I run this, let's make it a little bit bigger. Alright, let's run this. We're gonna enter some names, like foods, sushi. I'm going to enter pizza. I'm going to enter sandwich. Here we go. And let's add another one. Let's add maybe what is it? I'm just thinking about some food. Hamburger or cheeseburger. Alright. There you go. So the computer chose sushi for you. So the computer went with the first option. Just like that, we just wrote a program that is gonna get some information, turn it into a list, and choose a random number and append that random number into each item, and just, you know, give us a food that we should go with. That's pretty much it, guys. It's a very simple program, but again, I just wanted you to actually practice this. Make sure, again, if you haven't done this code yet, make sure you do it after this video, meaning that I want you to, like, you know, kind of do it off of your memory so you understand it, because when you type the code, you understand it better. So that's very, very important. One more thing I'd like to point out, which is very important, is there is an actually very simple way to do this, literally with like 2-3 lines of code instead of like having 6 of them, you know. And I will talk about that in the next video. I'm going to make a quick video to talk about like how to do this quickly. But I wanted to do this like the hard way. This is what we did, was actually the hard way. I wanted to do it the hard way because I wanted you to understand these like concepts, right? Like splitting the length function. This is something we talked about in the previous sections. I wanted to like pull this back so we use it again. The random integer, random number generation, like list like system, right? Like working with lists and things like that. So I wanted you to understand this, so that's why I wanted to go do it the hard way. But there's a very simple way to do this as well, which I will talk about in the next video, and it's just kind of a cheating way to do it. But again, it's just that's just like the power of Python really, and how to do this really, really simply. So again, practice this. This is going to really teach you a lot of good stuff. So make sure you put it to use. Let me know if you have any questions. If not, I'll see you in the next lesson.